My name is Michael Landy, and my name was the only thing I was left with back in February 2001 when I destroyed all my worldly belongings, all 7,227 of them in an artwork which was entitled Breakdown. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about another artwork which only existed for 27 minutes.
Encore.
Hello. This machine, it's a marvelous thing. It's a machine that makes a spectacle. It's a sculpture, it's a picture, make picture, make sounds. It's a componist. It's good. Yeah. Or componist. It's a poet. It's a declaration. This machine is a situation.
D.A. Pennebaker didn't really know what was happening. Really, no one knew what was going to happen and what transpired. So, I literally cannibalized their films. They're also part of my film as well. So, that's really part of that, really.
Yeah, and the second one, the Bear one, it's indeed it's much more in avant-garde, and then the layering. He really makes an interpretation, exposing the footage twice or something.
Yeah, I think he told me he said he made a mistake actually. So he ran the film through the camera twice, and that's why, by mistake, because he was working in the dark.
Looks very deliberate.
But, yeah.
That's
Jean asked me to make a film while he was building this thing and as part of it, but not to make a documentary. He told me to do whatever I felt like doing, and just to be part of that event. Well, the thing about Tinguely, he's what we call beetle brow. His eyebrows go right across. And I think that's a function of testosterone myself.
How did you come across this work, the Homage to New York?
Well, after I did Breakdown, where like you said, I destroyed all my worldly belongings, then I was in Canada, and I was in a bookshop in Canada, and I was flicking through this book called Passages in Sculpture by Rosalind Krauss, and there was a black and white image of Homage to New York, and then I read a bit about it, and then suddenly, I liked the parallels between Breakdown, where I destroyed all my worldly belongings in front of like 50,000 people over a 14-day period back in 2001. Actually, at a former CNA building, which is CNA's, which obviously is founded in Holland, yeah. And the parallels between that and Homage to New York, because that literally lasts for 27 minutes, and it ends up in a dump in New Jersey, most of it, and most of my worldly belongings ended up in a landfill site in Essex. So, they both no longer exist, as there's obviously film footage and people's recollections, but that's what I like, that kind of connection. And then I started to think about, and so really my documentary comes about because I want to recreate Homage to New York. I like the idea of, so even though
that's really, in a way, he wants to sort of get rid of everything, and you get rid of all your stuff and Breakdown. Yeah. And then you want to reconstruct that.
Well, I liked the perversity of it, I guess, was to recreate something only for it to destroy itself once again. But obviously, and this is like junk from 1960, it's also American junk from 1960. But I like the idea of recreating it so it would obviously destroy itself in a different way to the original, because obviously with all Tinguely's things, it says one thing on the instructions, but then it does the complete opposite in a way. So, and that's what's marvelous, and that's why they're like very human machines in that respect. So, so that's what I set out to do, which isn't really clear in the documentary, because in the end I didn't want to highlight the negative aspect, I guess, because ultimately in the end,
allowed to
ultimately in the end, because it did exist. There are films of it, there are black and white pictures of it, there's recollections of it, that it's in newsprint. Then it obviously has copyright implications, and because I did originally want to stage it at the Museum of Modern Art, at the Museum of Modern Art Sculpture Garden, where it first took place. but they would need copyright clearance, and I couldn't get it. No.
So would you do it again if you were now allowed to? If
I would do it in a different way, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
In what way?
I'd use people as the machine. Yeah.
How with that Burning Man, you know?
No, like they perform it. The people become the piano, become the wheels,
Wow.
they generate the sounds. So it's still a 27-minute performance. Like originally with my film, I just wanted to show it the once. So like because I like the idea of it, like the 27 minutes, because obviously it's just a coincidence. No one knew at the beginning it was going to last 27 minutes, but that's
it took forever to start, right?
yeah,
And
because
then,
no one actually knew when it started as well. So it was an hour late as well, and it's in a freezing cold. So there's lots of rich and well-to-do people there in their mink coats, freezing. And anyway, I like the idea. Originally, when I made my own film, I'd only show it for 27 minutes, and then it would be fed through some shredder, and we'd never see it again. But my producers took me out of it.
yeah.
For a self-constructing, self-destroying work of art that only lasted for 27 minutes, some 50 years ago, it's surprising how much stuff is still in existence, since it was all supposed to end up in the garbage cans of the museum. I can't speak for Tinguely. I don't know how he would feel about seeing all these remnants I have found and the drawings I have made. I would like to believe that he saw it as my homage to his homage to New York.
When I first read and looked at the image from the Rosalind Krauss book, then I went to the archives at the Tinguely Museum, and so that's where it started really, and then seeing what was left of this self-destroying, self-constructing machine. So that's where it began, and then obviously I went to MoMA in New York as well, and I put an advert in Art Forum where I asked people who may have some of the remnants at the end of the performance. As it says, people take bits away. So I try to recreate the story through people's recollections, and of course I know the story inside out, so I almost feel like I'm bullying these old people when I watch it now, because I know the story so well. It's like I basically want them to say the words that I know already, but it's like, so there's a certain degree of bullying going on, because I want them to, because I need them to fill in the gaps. But also, I mean, meeting Herbert Migdal, I went to see him in Chicago, and he had the addressograph machine. He was a 17-year-old intern, and no one had ever tracked him down. So I basically have my own archive really. So I'm a curator in that respect. I'm discovering things, and I'm trying to piece things together, and piece together this self-destroying, self-constructing machine.
For all these remnants which I've collected for my exhibition, there was one which remained elusive, the addressograph machine. Up until now.
It was left in the garden, and I had my eye on it, because I thought, are they going to throw that away? Please don't throw that away. And I got the piece out and took it to my father's electric shop in Jersey City and put it in his garden, in the back of the garden. And I thought, well, that certainly does upgrade his garden.
When I started also working on him, I always thought it was only in homage to machine culture. But then I found out that it was much more critical also, that he wanted to liberate machines, that he wanted to sort of say, okay, from the leftovers, the pieces that are so thrown away so easily, I want to make free machines that are useless. And of course, this is much more even. This was the machine is an artist, it was a poet, a componist.
He's a componist, yeah.
There were so many things. So he makes them human in a way.
Yeah.
He makes them into performers.
Yeah.
How do you relate to that? Because I think your machines are often, your own work is often quite critical, and it's very much located or contextualized in very British, of course.
Yeah, I'm interested in leftovers as well, like you were mentioning I'm leftovers of people we've thrown on the scrap heap, leftovers of, rubbish as well. As a society, what value do we give to this stuff, whether it's people or rubbish or whatever? What value? And values changing the whole time. Value is always destroying itself and recreating itself. So, that's kind of where I come from as an artist, and I've made lots of different projects. You know, I've recreated my mum and dad's house at Tate, Britain. I mean, I made very intricate etchings of weeds. Weeds are also a nuisance in a way. Gardeners hate them; they dig them up and throw them away. But they're also very stoical, very beautiful things as well. So I mean, my practice is very different. But you know, I made an exhibition. I was a National Gallery artist at the National Gallery, like for 2 years, and I made kind of kinetic sculptures as well. So because I kind of thought about, because normally you know, the National Gallery is like 99.9% painting. And I wanted to engage the public in a different way. So I thought, well, let's engage it like Tinguely would engage it.
At the same time, then drawing, also in this documentary, you show a lot of the animated drawings.
Yeah, I made that for the film.
And for him, of course, Tinguely himself also was fascinating by drawing, making, of course, the machine drawings, but also himself repeatedly redrawing in a way what he was making and returning to it all over again and again and again.
Yeah.
Do you do that with your other projects as well? Do you draw your projects, or is it only now for this work particularly?
I mean, I draw in lots of different ways. I mean, so there isn't one particular way. I mean, like obviously with Homage to New York, when he drew that, I mean, I think that's probably a drawing he made afterwards, because I think he makes it off the hoof really. He just makes it as he goes along. Like he was nobody at that point. I mean, like how he got an exhibition you know, at MoMA, you know, within no time at all from arriving in New York. You know, he had some reputation, but not much. And
I always thought like Marcel Duchamp should have probably has called the MoMA and said like...
I think someone did make a call,
Because Duchamp was, of course, he was becoming
he was
soon a big
also,
fan. They were meeting then for the first time.
Yeah.
And of course Hilsenbeck was there as well, and they really saw him as a sort of second Dada movement.
Yeah, he's like second
really,
Dada,
yeah. Although there was also some cynical remarks about, of course, the black tie, Dada.
Oh yeah,
But the artists themselves, like Hilsenbeck and Duchamp, really said, okay, this guy really is the new generation.
Oh yeah, and I think, I mean, the artists were the abstract expressionists. They're the ones who aren't happy and a bit bored and... Yeah, but it's, you know, he has like Robert Rauschenberg. He collaborates. You know, Robert Rauschenberg makes a mascot that, you know, throws the coins into the audience. It's, I think, it's also a really intriguing story as well, and I think that's also what interested me. And obviously, you know, it's ephemeral as well. It lasts for as long as it does, and that's it. And you know, he, as I say in the film, he wanted to get away from the physical constraints of sculpture, and he wanted to break away from that, and he didn't. I mean, in a way, he placed a joke on us, because I was thinking as I was watching the film, because it's up to us now to conserve and preserve his sculptures, because he's out of the building now, he's gone, and it's left up to all of us now to, you know, to kind of look after what's left.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, then it's so much. It's a spectacle.
Fire eats with relish more frames.
He wasn't supposed to have a fire. There wasn't supposed to be any fire, because there had been a fire at the Museum of Modern Art a few years before that, and so they were very sensitive about that. So they did actually ask him, "Are there going to be? There's no fire, is there?" And I'm not sure if he actually answered it directly. He probably pulled that face he pulls and acts a bit dumb and doesn't quite understand their English. And then but he does have a fire, and the people at the museum are actually very angry. A lot of them don't speak to him afterwards, But there's a whole misunderstanding really. Obviously, a fire extinguisher that was in the piano. Obviously, a fire extinguisher is designed not to explode in a fire, you know. But so what shuts down the whole of Homage to New York is because he thinks the fire extinguisher is going to explode, and of course it doesn't do that at all. So that's ultimately why the New York Fire Brigade put it down.
Some kind of chief of some sort with the local fire department showed up and wrote a ticket. He said, you know, who do I give this to? And they said, well, there's the guy out there pointing to Tinguely.
Self-destroying sculpture didn't actually destroy itself. It was left up to the New York Fire Brigade to destroy it.
Because the audience think they're pulling it down because, you know, they've been the fire brigade, but they've actually been ordered to do it from Tinguely.
7:55. Baby machine in flames skitters toward the audience, screams. Someone grabs its torso and sends it flaming back toward T. Ding, ding.
obviously destruction is also a creative act as well. I mean, that's normally why artists use it. I mean, it's also a creative thing as well. I mean, I was supposed to, because my project ran over budget, so I was supposed to have like remnants of like shredded up like passport, for instance, in a Perspex box, but I couldn't bring myself to do that because I didn't want to see my project somewhere on someone's plinth in someone's front room and think of my project ended up like that. And that's why, you know, every now and again in your life, it's good to see something through to the bitter end, and so I'm glad I didn't end up with debts, but at least I didn't end up with any shredded passport in a Perspex case.
8:05. Suddenly, in the confusion, the thing seems to be at an end. Finally, T, smiling, faces cameras. Cheers, bravos. What has happened or not happened, no one can be sure.